I think I say it every year, but Western States is as big as it gets in this sport. It's one of 2 races with Super Bowl-like status, and it's always an incredible race to follow. This year we were teased with the greatest men's field in ultra running history, but injuries in training have led to 2 of the sport's biggest stars pulling out, Jim Walmsley and Hayden Hawkes, which has slightly dampened the excitement, but only slightly as there's still some fantastic runners towing the line. Again, I say it every year, but there's just too many names to mention without turning this quick preview into a full-blown podcast. And no doubt I'll miss someone or rush past your favourite runner, so feel free to tell me why I shouldn't be overlooking them, or tell me your picks for the podium in the comments below. Oh, and remember to subscribe while you're down there so you don't miss my women's preview in a couple of days' time. If you've never heard of Western States, or this is your first year following along, check out my History of Western States video for some background on the race. But in this video I'm going to start with 3 guys, including 2 former winners who have the biggest star power or X factor in this field, before moving on to some of the other challengers. Let's jump into it. Killian Shaun is the greatest of all time, and in Jim's absence, he's the out and out favourite for the win. In amongst his incredible list of accomplishments is a Western States win back in 2011, and anyone who's watched the legendary film Unbreakable will have seen him battling for the win the year before as well, meaning he's got plenty of experience on this course. So you don't need me to tell you why he's the favourite. Instead, I'm going to give you 2 reasons why he might not win. Firstly, can he still hang on a course that will require so much fast running without the steep grades and technical terrain on which he usually breaks the competition? Yes, he's won shorter Golden Trail races like Sierra Zanal and Zagama in recent years, but those courses have long sections that play to his strengths in a way that Western States doesn't. And there are guys in this field that would smoke Killian over a flat 10k, for example. So if anyone with that sort of leg speed is still with him at Forest Hill, I have to wonder if he'll have the turnover to stay with them. I'm thinking about how we saw Tom Evans throw down some sub 6-minute miles immediately after Forest Hill to break Dakota Jones a couple of years ago. And secondly, how will he cope with the heat? 2010 was a long time ago, and I can't see Killian neglecting his fueling and cooling in the same way that we saw during Unbreakable. But he doesn't race in these conditions very often, and although his training videos include a big emphasis on heat training, if you've listened to fellow Norway resident John Albon speak after his Western States race last year, he explained that despite taking many of the same steps, the heat on race day is just different, and it absolutely fried a world-class runner like John. If Killian has an answer to that heat, and the ferocious pace, then it would be silly to bet against him. I enjoy rooting for an upset though, so I'm not going to pick him, but he'll be in my top 5 for sure. David Roach is probably the most talked about runner in the sport over the last 12 months. He's an interesting but divisive character with a huge fan base and a long history of top results. So it's fair to say there's a lot of interest in how David's race will go, and rightly so. On one hand, his incredible wins at Javelina and Leadville last year put him up there as one of the top guys in the sport, but on the other hand, he's kind of untested in competitive fields. Javelina attracts some big names, but nowhere near the calibre of this, or even a Black Canyon, Canyons, or any of the UTMB finals races, and his time there didn't better the course record of John Ray, who went on to finish 9th here at States. His Leadville performance was quite a statement, breaking the long-standing Matt Carpenter course record. But the race itself has never been that competitive, and while some top names like Anton, Rob Kra and Ian Sharman have had a crack at that record, in the modern age of training, fueling and footwear advancements, you have to think that that record would have been achievable for a handful of other Western States top 10 contenders as well. So it's really hard to say how either of those performances stack up on the biggest of stages. One thing's for sure, David has been very outspoken about needing to be in the front pack or leading out from the start if you want to be in with a shot of winning, as well as shooting for the course record and a sub 14 hour performance. It's a high risk, high reward strategy, and I can only really see David winning or blowing up and DNFing. I really just can't see him being content with hanging on for a 7th or something like that, but I'm super excited to find out. Adam Peteman's undefeated rise to the top of the sport back in 2022 culminated with a Western States win and a World Championship, which left many, including myself, thinking he was going to be the sport's next big superstar and that he'd be taking the top step at all the major races for years to come. An injury-ravaged 2023 halted that progress, and since his return, that air of invincibility has waned a little, which has perhaps caused some fans to have forgotten just how good Adam is. On Reddit, I was actually called delusional for picking him to win Western States at the start of the year. Now yes, it's fair to say Adam's winning time of 15:13 wasn't exactly fast by Western States standards. It would have only been good enough for 10th last year. but 2022 was a hot year and Adam raced smart, didn't try and take it out hard from the front, just did exactly what was needed to match Hayden Hawks before pulling away in the latter stages. And I think that smart racecraft will once again pay dividends here. Whilst David and the others go off hard from the front, I can see Adam tactically holding back early on, maybe keeping close to Killian and getting ready to throw down in the last 50k. Adam was my pick for the Western States win in my January predictions video, and since then he's showed he's back to his best with a dominant course record performance at Gorge Waterfalls. So I'm going to stick by that prediction and say that Adam will still be my number one pick. Okay, I'm pretty confident the winner comes from one of those three, but this field is so deep and there's plenty of other contenders, so I'll quickly run through some of them. Back-to-back top fives and the 5th fastest runner in Western States history. Dan Jones is getting better year on year, and his Tarawera course record earlier this year proves that he's once again stepped up a level. Over the last 2 years, Dan's been in the dark horse category, but this time around he's firmly in amongst the favourites. Having run so well here in the past, and in hot humid race conditions like at Tarawera, I'm not worried about the conditions affecting Dan, and he's always been up there within touching distance at the front, so I'm sure he won't want to let a breakaway group go. But if Dan is up there, charging amongst the front group, he'd be one of the guys I'd be least worried about, and I think he'd have a real chance of being the last man standing from that breakaway group. Rod had an incredible 2024 with a breakout win at Canyons followed by a spectacular second place at States, pushing Jim the entire way and seemingly having him on the ropes at times. But he hasn't really built on that momentum since, and I'm finding it really hard to gauge how it will go for him this year. He is the second fastest man in the history of the race though, and he wasn't afraid to front run, taking the lead at the top of the escarpment last year. So I think there's a good chance he'll be in the David Roach breakaway group early on. He's the fastest man in the field on this course, so you'd be silly to call him a dark horse, but I feel like he's kind of going under the radar a bit, and he could absolutely win this thing. I've said before on this channel that I'm a massive fan of the Boulder Boys podcast, and for that reason Seth is probably my favourite runner in this race and the person I want to win the most. He definitely has the talent. His golden ticket and course record performance at Black Canyon earlier this year against such a stacked field was incredible, and within that Seth showed great racecraft and composure, as it was noted on commentary that he was the only front runner to stop and take on fuel and ice at the first aid station. That self-care then paid off in the second half of the race, and it's that sort of smart racing that could be a massive difference maker here, especially if the pace is as hot as we think. The big question mark for Seth is the distance, as this is his first 100 miler. And as much as I only want to say positive things about him, his 2024 season did give him a bit of a reputation for DNFing when the going gets tough. So if we see him redlining right at the front in the first 50k, I'd be worried. But if he's a minute or two behind and taking good care of himself, then I think he's got a really good shot at winning. The fastest debutant in Western States history. It's safe to say Caleb Olson's 2024 race went pretty well, and his 2025 season is already off to a fantastic start with a win and course record at Trans Gran Canaria, beating out John Albon in the process, which is no easy task in a European mountain race where John usually dominates. Caleb is another one that falls into the smart racer category. He spent a lot of last year running with Tyler Green, and there's no better person to learn this race with than Tyler. And I've heard John Albon and Josh Wade both speak about times that they thought they'd broken away from Caleb at Trans Gran Canaria, and he still came back to beat them. So I don't think he'll be drawn into an early breakaway group. I'm pretty confident that he'll build on what he achieved last year. 5th place in a time that would have won the year before. But in a field this stacked, if we are on course record watch, then even a faster time may not improve that position. If you're watching my channel and spend a lot of time following the sport on YouTube, then chances are you've found Hans' channel or watched the recently released The Kid film, and you know exactly what Hans is all about. He's young, super talented, full of positive energy, and has a hunger to chase some big goals. I've heard him compared to 2016 Jim Walmsley, coming in with some well-earned arrogance and some naivety, which is a pretty perfect combination to fearlessly chase the win here, as long as he doesn't make a wrong turn. This is his first 100 miler though, and he's got previous for not managing his body particularly well when trying to stick with the leaders, ending up with a case of rhabdo after spending 50k holding on to Hayden Hawks at Black Canyon last year. Either way, he's one to keep an eye on for sure. And finally, an actual dark horse in Slovakia's Peter Frano. I don't know much about the man who got his golden ticket finishing second at CCC last year, beating 4 of the guys I've already spoken about, including my pick for the win, Adam Peteman. but you've got to consider him a challenger after a performance like that. As far as I can see though, again this is his first 100 miler, so it'll be interesting to see how he manages to step up in distance, and I think Peter will surprise the more casual viewer with a big performance here. As I said in the intro, it's impossible to cover everyone in detail. There's at least 25 guys who warrant a mention, so just to throw a few more out there, keep your eyes peeled for UTMB 2024 champion Vincent Bouillard, Long Trail great Joe McConaughey, Leadville champion Adrian McDonald, Cocodona champion Dan Green, returning top 10 finisher Chris Myers, European royalty Hannes Namberger, Jeff Mogavaro, Ryan Montgomery, Harry Subertes, the legend that is Jeff Browning, and finally a fun one to keep track of, not somebody who will likely be troubling the top 10, another host of a podcast I love, Trail Talks Irish champion Ricky Wynn. To quickly run you through my picks, as I said, I'm going Adam Peteman for the win, Caleb and Seth to run smart races and round out the podium, Killian, who'll be running with the front pack until Forest Hill before getting dropped by these faster Americans, maybe suffering a little bit in the heat, but hanging on for 4th, and Dan Jones to get another top 5 finish. Then Peter Frano, Vincent Bouillard, Rod Farvard, Adrian McDonald and Joe McConaughey to fill out the second half of the top 10. I've not really put too much thought into the places there, but they all seem like solid top 10 picks. Notably, I've left out David Roach. I just think his win or bust mentality will lead to a DNF here, but I'm very prepared to be proven wrong. I usually am with these predictions, but I'm so excited to find out. As always, let me know who I've missed or who your pick is for the win in the comments below. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss my women's race preview. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back soon with more ultra running content. Cheers.